Welcome back to the Goodman Podcast. Today, we're going to explore how AI is revolutionizing antibiotic discovery, from speeding up development to tackling resistance. And we're going to dive into how AI analyzes data, predicts effectiveness, and even designs custom drugs. Recently, AI helped discover an antibiotic to a bacteria that had developed antibiotic resistance. So that is kind of a big thing that the world is worried about at the moment, is drug resistance bacteria and infections. So yeah, let's dive right in. Raj, we hear a lot about big data, but how does it help discover new antibiotics? Can you maybe explain how AI analyzes this data to find potential drug candidates faster than we have in the past?
Absolutely. I think this is a very remarkable and perhaps one of the biggest applications to help make us live longer and stronger in the coming years. The thing about big data is that obviously we have a ton of information and data about different kind of viruses, bacteria, the impact of certain antibacterial drugs on the bacteria itself, but we don't have all the information. And what's happening is when we look at from a human perspective, and then we look at from the AI perspective, we look at it from a human perspective, we're looking into a very zoomed in version. Imagine if you're looking at a massive maze, and we are actually in the maze. It's really hard to get out of it. But if we had this, a drone version or a helicopter version or a bird's eye view, as it were, we can clearly see where the challenges are and where should we go to get out of the maze, for example. Or if I do this, then this happens. And then play that multiple times over to figure out the answer. This is what AI is actually doing. AI, as I mentioned before in previous podcasts, the big important part about AI is the intelligence in artificial intelligence. And the way it does that is it's able to play scenarios of what worked, what solved the problem before, whether it's in antibiotics or whether it is in problem solving or game theory, and repeat that again and again to find a pattern and then fix it. As human beings, we can't do that. Firstly, the capacity of what we can do is really hard. Secondly, when you have a bigger team, breaking down challenges into smaller parts, we get confused or perhaps lost in the challenge. I'll give you a scenario which I thought was very interesting. I play a lot of paddle tennis nowadays, and sometimes we have, you're meant to have 4 players to play paddle. It's like tennis basically. You need to have 4 players, and sometimes you don't have one player in. So one person plays the half a court, and that's where you hit. The 2 people are playing the full court basically. It's always that the person who's playing the one court wins. You would imagine the people who are in the other side, 2 people, the full court, that they have more power and they have more capacity, that they should win. The reality is the other person always wins, because when you have 2 people come in, there's confusion, there's challenges, there's miscommunication, and that's why they always gonna fail. Imagine you have a big problem around solving a genetic breakdown of a bacteria, and it's so big you can't solve it one person, so you break it into multiple smaller chunks. The miscommunication amongst people causes it for there to be a meltdown, and at the end, problems get solved. Equally, the problem is so big for one person that it can't be solved either. But that's not the case with AI. It has pretty much infinite intelligence now, with all the GPU power been put into it and the cash been put into to have big servers and big operations. So it can solve massive, complicated issues, looking at the patterns of what worked and what didn't. And as it does and problem solves a new problem, it remembers that as well. Use that to kind of make new scenarios. It's a bit like Tesla's vision AI. Oh, I don't know what that's called exactly, but basically it's the AI used for vision. It can actually create scenarios and talk to different cause. So, for example, a person came in front of one of the cars and it stopped. That is then shared with all the other cars as well. They can all learn from that particular scenario. Similarly, AI can also replicate or create scenarios to teach itself a potential outcome. All these help basically to kind of create different problem solving material for to discover new drugs, new ways to
mm,
solve, to find potential challenges with bacteria. Maybe there's a benzene ring which is like missing, or there's a carbon missing, the weak point for the bacteria. Then it kind of attacks that part and is able to replicate that over scale, at scale. And that is where you can build new drugs, which is probably impossible as a human being.
mm. Now, I just want to pick up on something that you mentioned about obviously AI can process very large amounts of data very quickly. But if we look at how humans process data, or how we kind of predict what's going to happen in the future, we often look at historical trends. But historical trends, they really only tell you what happened in the past. You can't necessarily base future predictions on past trends. They can give you an indication, obviously, but there are, as the term is, unknown unknowns in the future that could impact how things play out. So when we're talking about AI processing data for like drug discovery, do you know how, or maybe you could explain how it's taking historical data and dealing with those unknown unknowns that could affect how the prediction works out in the future?
Absolutely. Well, the unknown unknowns is where the challenge really lies, is where the problem solving comes into place. And typically, the only way to solve the unknown unknowns is to do rapid experiment, trial and error, which is very difficult to achieve in the case of human beings trying to do every bit of it. But if we can model that up and then attempt different options, which worked, which didn't work, and try to fix that issue, it actually can be done better. So just to look at the AI part of it, using previous data, the AI can build up a model of what might work to get rid of the bacteria, for example. It has found vulnerabilities in the bacteria and it hits that part. If it doesn't know the answer, it will then create multiple options for us. But suddenly we have three options instead of 100,000 options to kind of go at. That narrowing it down, because it has played the different scenarios within itself, is what is really, really powerful. Also, what AI can do also is that it can create fake scenarios, synthetic data, to kind of to problem solve the issue, which will take years, if not decades, to solve. And
Mm,
all these things help to solve the problem easier and quicker. What can actually really help as well is human in the loop. So if, for example, it solves particular issues, gets stuck somewhere, we have the breakdown of how what is done internally. The human can look at them and say, well, that looks more logical than the other one. They can guide it better as well. So
mm,
in the case of AI, you can mix and match human in the loop and the computational power and the ability of AI. We really have a winner in place, which
mm,
again, human beings on their own cannot achieve.
mm. Now, again, we were talking about obviously the antibiotic itself. Will the AI obviously be able to take into within the context of developing these new antibiotics, the evolution of bacteria, because obviously that's why we are where we are at the moment with drug resistant bacteria, is because bacteria evolve as well. So we're looking down two streams: the drug development and the bacteria evolution, to try and create new drugs.
Absolutely, I think that this is a very interesting area to be in, because as we are seeing the bacteria or the virus in many cases evolve, we're documenting that as well. We're documenting the bacteria's evolution, the antibiotics evolution, and we can always predict what's going to happen next. Well, we can predict because it takes a lot of computational power to achieve that prediction, but the AI
Mm,
can. And before we come into a problem or challenge with it, we can have solutions for it. Now, let me kind of go back to a point. For example, COVID. When COVID happened, if we had the same AI technology available at scale the way we have today, I believe we would have got the vaccination much quicker than
mm,
we would have. We would have struggled for 2 years, for example. And this is why this is very interesting, because now if this thing happens again, hopefully we're more prepared to build a vaccination program based on the learnings we've had already, and also the data we
mm,
already have. You can run through simulations and can get the answer quicker.
mm. Do you think that AI and the processing power of AI and the how it can kind of process this data so quickly will help with let me put it this way. In during the time of COVID, there was a lot of misinformation and disinformation, and there were scientists that were saying you need to have the vaccine. There were people saying that you shouldn't have the vaccine. So will AI and the way it's being used in healthcare and drug development help alleviate that kind of misinformation in the public domain as well? How do you see that panning out?
Well, it all comes down to what is the AI trained on, and how much is it controlled. If, for example, it is in the right hands and the data which we use is the data which is relevant and correct, I believe this can definitely remove, minimize misinformation. But equally, AI in the wrong hands can cause for disruption as well. So it just depends
Mm,
upon how it's used. If you look at the model today, some large language model creators control the information flow. So it's a better way of using it. But with open source LLMs like Llama, for example, people can build their own data models. They can have their own
mm,
rules, for example. You'll always have that. But luckily for us, there's only a very small percentage of people who want to do that. Most of the
mm.
people actually want to use it for the right cause.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I mean, this all sounds very exciting, and you said it's going to help us live longer. Where exactly are we headed with this? What possibilities do you see for AI and antibiotic discovery in the next few years, and what sort of impact do you think it's going to have on our health?
I would imagine that this is going to make us definitely have a healthier, happier life. Saying that, we don't know how AI evolves really. If you look at the data, it shows that currently is growing exponentially. It should continue in that way. We can't say for sure. But if I look at the general trends, I would say we will see better drugs being developed much faster and cheaper. There will be hopefully enough energy supply available in the back of different kinds of energy sources like solar and other renewable energy. That makes life much easier and makes things cheaper. And then there's a lot of money being put in right now into chip manufacturing, and
Mm,
that will also really help with processing power. So all in all this will bring the prices down and have
mm,
better cures available faster. And not only that, but also other patient care. As the population globally is getting older and older, especially in, say, for example, Europe, Italy being one of the oldest population in Europe, they need more ways where AI can help them. And that's where robots and hardware can come in to support a aging population. in living better. But again, time shall tell. But I'm positive about it. I feel like this is going to be the big evolution. We will live for hundreds of years, most likely. I mean, people say that the average age is going to go up to at least 90. Well, we shall see.
Yeah. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how pharmaceutical companies, who generally have a pretty bad reputation for keeping prices high of drugs. If diabetes is, for example, a big one, where the drugs are just unaffordable for the average person. So with AI potentially driving prices down, it's going to be interesting to see pharmaceutical companies' reaction to making prices more affordable for the general public, and making healthcare like this more universal and more accessible.
Yes, but if you look at the evolution of things in our life, there used to be a time where, for example, aluminium was very, very expensive. It was only used for the most expensive luxury items. But then over the years, the process of extraction of aluminum and actually utilization of that became very, very easy. You can build much lighter, more durable materials. And so spoons and cutlery at home became aluminum. And so that's become commoditized and cheap. Similarly, we look at various other things in our life. For example, at one point, a private chauffeur was very expensive. Now with Uber, you all have one. And it cost. I was in Cape Town. It cost me like a couple of dollars and stuff to go around two different spots in South Africa and Cape Town. It was pretty inexpensive. So with technology, things become cheaper, better, more affordable, and that only can do one thing for us, is that it will become available to much larger population, and it won't be any more an issue for them. It won't be a sticking point for them. It will be just available, like we have for most people. Internet today is almost become a available commodity. Back in the day, in the 1990s, for example, it was rare commodity. It was very expensive. It wasn't available to everybody. So I think we will see where medicine become cheaper and more available for sure in the future.
Yeah, fingers crossed, because the world needs it. Thanks, Raj. This was super interesting, and obviously this kind of research and interaction with AI is crucial. So it's going to be interesting to see, and again, fingers crossed for a future where these life-saving drugs not only remain effective but become more accessible. So thank you for sharing your insights on that.
It's an absolute pleasure, Megan. Thank you for getting me involved.
Sure. To everyone watching and listening, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, stay curious and stay healthy.